So when Nike first introduced the Zoomfly and the Vaporfly, these two shoes were very similar. They shared a similar silhouette, and the main differences were mainly the midsole material and some other minor tweaks. But overall, they were pretty similar companion shoes. Over the years, the Vaporfly and the Zoomfly have both kind of diverged and become their own shoes. Now, with the Zoomfly 5, it is a completely different shoe. And has this redesign been for the better or for the worse? Well, after a couple of runs, I'm ready to give you my first impressions of the Nike Zoomfly 5. So the specs of the shoe are a bit of a mystery. When I personally measured the midsole plus the sock liner and the outsole, I got around 46 millimeters in the heel and 36 in the forefoot of my size 12. I've also heard some other people measure theirs around 41 in the heel and 33 in the forefoot. Regardless, it's a lot of foam. So that means the drop is between 10 to 8 millimeters probably. And for my men's size 12, the weight came in at 12.3 ounces. And with a men's size 9, I assume it'll probably be around 10 ounces. So definitely not a light one. This shoe goes into the carbon plated trainer / racer category. Alright, so let's go into the what's new shoe overview. The upper is made up of sandwich mesh with a midfoot cage, and there is also a nice amount of padding around the tongue and ankle. The midsole no longer uses React and instead has an SR2 EVA carrier foam with a recycled ZoomX scrap core. It does retain the full-length carbon fiber plate. It's embedded in the middle. The outsole uses thin webbed rubber. Moving on to the fit of the shoe, I thought that the length of the shoe was true to size, but the shoe itself was definitely a bit roomier. I think it's just a wider based shoe in general, so there's kind of an extra room in the toe box. So I'd say true to size, but it's definitely more of that everyday trainer kind of roomier feel and not like the Streak Fly, where it's more of that snug racing flat feel. Alright, so talking about the ride and just kind of my overall first impressions of the shoe, I will say that before I bought this, I saw some other reviewers saying that this shoe was a brick and clunky, so that definitely did not give me high hopes, so I set my expectations pretty low, and I'd say it kind of exceeded my low expectations, but it didn't blow them out of the water. So no, this shoe isn't super light. Yes, it's got a lot of shoe to it, and it isn't all that nice, soft, bouncy ZoomX. It's that mix like we talked about. So if you have your hopes up of being this, ZoomX super trainer, I don't think it's necessarily that. However, I will say that the ride of this shoe was super smooth. That heel-to-toe transition was super nice. The late meta rocker really gave me a nice pop off the toe. And that EVA shell with the recycled ZoomX core didn't give me that really bouncy, energetic ride that you get from normal ZoomX. So I thought it was a little firmer, but I thought this did make it more stable. So although I haven't done any super fast workouts in these shoes yet, I did do some strides in them, and I noticed the carbon plate a little in there. It gave it a nice little toe off, and I have done some recovery paces in this shoe and thought it was okay, but I think where this will probably excel the most is in those kind of moderate to medium paces. So if you do have a track workout coming up, I don't think I would choose this shoe. For that, I would choose something like the Streak Fly. But I think this will be good for those long, fast runs if you have like a long fartlek or something just more marathon paced. Alright, now I'm going to do a few quick comparisons to the Zoomfly 5. First up, I'm going to be comparing it to the ZoomX Invincible. So both of these have super thick midsoles, both have ZoomX printed on the side of them, and both have some more plush uppers to them. However, I do find these shoes pretty different. The full ZoomX definitely feels a lot softer, a lot bouncier on the Invincible, and the recycled ZoomX core on the Zoomfly definitely feels firmer. But between the two, I would use the Invincible for my recovery runs and long slow days, but I would use the Zoomfly for some faster paced, longer runs. Next up is the Tempo Next Percent from Nike, and I was a little torn on my first impressions of the Tempo Next Percent. It didn't necessarily wow me. My main issue was just the disconnect from the React in the heel and the AirPods in ZoomX foam in the forefoot. I thought that it made the heel to toe transition very clunky, and that is not something I've had an issue with the Zoomfly 5. I thought that the transition was super smooth and kind of made the shoe feel a little less clunky overall. But if I'm doing a speed workout, I still don't think either of these would be my first choice. And finally, we're going to compare the Zoomfly to the Vaporfly. So like I mentioned, these two shoes both start out being very similar and now have their own identities. But with Nike printing ZoomX on the side of the Zoomfly 5, I have a lot of people asking me, well, what's the difference between these two shoes? They both have ZoomX, they're both carbon plated, pretty much the same, right? And the answer is no, these are two very different shoes. Besides just having a full-length carbon plate, that's about all that's similar. The Vaporfly Next Percent uses a full sheet ZoomX midsole, and that means it's going to be a lot lighter, a lot bouncier. And although there is a ZoomX core in the Zoomfly 5, it's not just a sheet of ZoomX, it's scraps of ZoomX that are glued together, so it feels a little bit firmer. It still has a little bounce to it, but definitely a lot firmer. And then it's a bulkier shoe, it has that EVA in there. So the Zoomfly is much more stable than the Vaporfly, but the Vaporfly is going to have that lightweight racing-oriented upper and outsole, and the Zoomfly is going to have that more training-oriented upper and outsole. So in summary, I would race in the Vaporfly and do training in the Zoomfly, and they are not as similar as you might think. So although this is a big shoe that almost makes the Alphafly look small, and the ZoomX scraps are going to be firmer than regular ZoomX, I don't think that this shoe deserves to be called a chunky brick. And over time, I'm hoping the more miles I put on it, the softer it will get. I do think that this will be a controversial shoe, and it will be much like the Boston 10 or the Tempo Next Percent, where you have people that are super hardcore fans that love those shoes, and you have other people that absolutely despise them. But I think if you like the Boston 10 or the Tempo Next Percent, then you might like the Zoomfly 5 as well. So I definitely need to put way more miles on these shoes and put them through the different paces, the different run types, before I give you my final conclusion, which will be in my full review. Subscribe so you don't miss that, and so you don't miss my first impressions of Nike's Alphafly Next Percent 2. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on running.